Okay, in this lesson series, we'll tackle the question, how do we get and use knowledge? We will introduce the working memory and long-term memory system. For some definitions, we've seen memory before, the capacity of an organism to acquire, store, and recover information. Working memory is going to be a short-term workspace to manipulate information, kind of like a buffer system that processes information from different areas of the brain. And then we have the long-term memory system, and that refers to the brain system that can store information in a way that can be accessed over long periods of time. So here are two memory systems, WN for working memory, LTM for long-term memory, and there are some important differences. The working memory system is a short-term system. It has limited capacity and it's easily overloaded, and we'll learn more about that in a moment. The long-term system has a large capacity, storage capacity, and of course to be educated means that we've stored lots of information in our long-term memory system. Now let's go on a journey, a learning journey here, and see how these memory systems interact when we're in a school setting. Here we have somebody presenting information to us, and so we're hearing things and we're seeing things and we're thinking about what it is they're presenting to us. Well, the information in the working memory system is just whatever it is that we're consciously experiencing or thinking about at that moment. But of course, I want to have access to that information later, so I need to make a long-term memory of that information. So there's going to have to be some communication between these systems. I don't want to just understand what was going on in the moment. I want to have a long-term memory so I can retrieve that information at a later time. We'll call that process a storage process, and it's in the long-term memory system where we're going to reintroduce the concept of plasticity. The neurons that make up the cerebral cortex, where lots of our memories are stored, they show the property of plasticity. They're capable of growing stronger connections as a result of learning experiences. We saw this in a previous lesson. Neurons that fire together wire together. So scientists think this change in connection strength, this change in synapse strength is the basis of learning, and if we maintain those stronger synapses, then that allows us to retain that information over longer periods of time. That would be a memory, a long-term memory. Using our vocabulary, we would say a memory trace for the learned information was formed in the long-term memory system. Of course, the goal later on will be to reactivate that memory trace so as to access that information that we learned. Now, at some later time, we want to test ourselves, or somebody is testing us, and we want to see whether we can retrieve that information from our long-term memory system. So what happens to the test question? Well, it enters our working memory system. So this is what we're processing right now. But here, notice the word learning has been crossed out. We're not using the contents of working memory to store information in the long-term memory system, but we're using the contents of working memory to search the long-term memory system. And the hope is that we're going to be able to reactivate the memory traces that were formed during the original learning classroom experience. If we can reactivate those memory traces, so we're reactivating those neurons that took part in the original learning episode, then we're going to load up that information into the working memory systems, and we would experience memory retrieval. We'll have a conscious experience of pulling something up out of our long-term memory system. Now in the next part, we're going to see how these memory systems are implemented in the human brain.